friends, it's just Martine, and welcome to the magical Hopathon readathon vlog one. In this video, I'm hoping to complete the 4 books that I want to read for the main park, and then next week's vlog will hopefully have the 3 books from the other park. Rachel, in designing this, was like doing it differently. You don't need to hit like certain categories in each park, but I decided to anyway because I thought it would be fun. Also, I've never been to Disneyland Paris, so it's not like I had specific things that I would do in my typical time there. But just to quickly talk about the 4 books that I'm hoping to get to this week. One, for my park entrance ticket for the Disneyland park, it's Read a Book That Is Calling to You. And for that, I'm going to be reading 33 Days by Leon Worth, and it has an introduction by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, who wrote Le Petit Prince. I'm excited for this. It's a World War II story, and it's like a historically lost book that was smuggled out of a wartime France by Antoine Saint-Exupéry. So I'm excited about it. It's a tale about escaping the Nazis. It's really short, just over 100 pages, and since picking this up on a free bookshelf, I've just been staring at it, wanting to read it so badly, so I'm gonna do that. For Mickey's PhilharMagic, read a book with illustrations, and for that, I'll hopefully be reading Warren the 13th because it has a ton of illustrations, and I'm just super excited about it. Then for Disney's Illuminations, read a book with a beautiful cover. I'm hoping to read Soul Heist. Then for Mickey Mouse Selfie Spot, read a book that is loved by all. I'm hoping to read Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. So it's Sunday night. I'll catch you in the morning when I start jumping into my park entrance prompt. Woohoo! For my park entrance prompt this morning, I read 33 Days. It's almost 1 p.m. on Monday, and I finished this just before I went and grabbed lunch with my sister. I'm ending up giving this a 3.5 stars. The history of this book is incredibly fascinating, and I think by virtue of its history alone, it's a very important piece of work. The fact that this book was smuggled out of France during World War II, was lost after it was sold to a publisher, eventually came to be published only for the intended introduction not to be there, and for that to be found later on and then republished is like a big thing. It's also a particularly unique perspective that I haven't read about in World War II, specifically from a nonfiction perspective. So this is a memoir of the 33 days that the author and his wife spent fleeing from the Nazis in France before they could get back home. It's a tale about like mass exodus and hospitality and the fear of living a transient life that's being upended by war, and what World War II was like in a part of Europe that isn't always discussed in light of World War II, because the focus is largely on Germany itself in World War II and not most of the other countries. And especially since there was actual like war going on in these grounds, it's really important because when we talk about historical wars from like an American perspective, oftentimes even if we participate in the wars and we lose lots of people to them, it doesn't affect our homeland, our safe space in America. But when war is happening on the other side of the world, it's not just impacting the people who are fighting and the people who love those who are fighting. It's impacting the direct livelihoods of everyone. And so especially to read this while everything's happening in Ukraine just gives like a really needed perspective for me on this type of event that I wouldn't be able to get without it. So I appreciate that. There were a couple times where this had trouble holding my attention, or some things I just didn't get. This has been translated from French and the translation is really well done, but sometimes I just wasn't like as with it as I needed to be. And also I read this pretty quickly, which might have been a downfall for the reading experience, but since I'm reading it for a readathon, I kind of wanted to get through it quickly. But it's definitely worth sitting there and thinking about. Like, you can read the book in one sitting, but then if you don't sit there and reflect on it or compare his experiences, the experiences that you've had in your life, like, you're not going to gain anything from it. So even as I was reading, I forced myself to consider like what that would feel like here, and that's something that I don't often do, particularly in fiction, but since it's a nonfiction, I especially wanted to soak that in because I've been excited to read this book for a little while. Yeah, the history behind it was really cool. The different perspective was really cool, and it was definitely worth a read. Now I'm officially in the park, and this will be my next one.
Wanted to give that book 5 stars until the very end.
It's 2 p.m. I'm halfway through Warren the 13th and the All-Seeing Eye. I read half of it in one 40-minute sprint on Rachel's channel, and now I'm going to eat a snack, and read some more.
For my first in-park prompt, I did Mickey's PhilharMagic Read a Book with Illustrations, and I chose Warren the 13th. I told you about all the illustrations, but like they were one of the highlights of reading this book, not the only highlights, because I also liked the style of book that it was. It was definitely like whimsical and quirky, which I could tell when I discussed it in the Dollar Tree haul that I recently did that included this book, specifically when I talked about like how the back was formatted. I loved this book a lot. It's definitely one that I'm excited to be keeping in my collection. I ended up giving it a 4 stars. I thought the characters were all interesting. The plot, it was pretty basic in some senses, but it was just like a fun scavenger hunt adventure plot trying to find this all-seeing eye that's rumored to be around the hotel. There were definitely some interesting character dynamics in this too. The creators did such a good job doing so many creative things, so even when it would switch to the evil aunt's perspective, it would invert the colors on the page. The pages would be black and the text would be white instead of vice versa, and then all of the headings at the top would be written in reverse. They were like backwards, which I thought was really cool because they inversed the titles just like they inversed the colors on the page. So I definitely recommend this if you can manage to pick it up. And I'd be interested to see what happened in the other books in the series, not because like I'm super invested in the series, but just because it's a fun one. Like if I happened to have the other books, I would definitely enjoy reading these. I definitely think it would be a great addition to like a young reader's library. I think this would be such a fun book for a young reader. I definitely had fun reading it too, even as an adult. Plus, it's just a beautiful book. So like overall, very, very happy about this. Fun for the whole family, just like Mickey's PhilharMagic is. Mickey's PhilharMagic in Walt Disney World is one of my family's most sought after attractions, definitely in the Magic Kingdom. We go pretty much every time we go to the Magic Kingdom. It's one of my brother's favorite attractions. Sometimes a little scared of it, especially when the champagne bottles like pop. That always freaks me out a little bit, but overall it's like a really fun show. And so I was like, oh, that's one of the attractions that I am familiar with that's also located in Disneyland Paris. So I do have some memories associated with it, even though I've never been to Disneyland Paris. So I definitely wanted to pick that prompt. Plus I knew immediately when I saw that the prompt was to read a book with illustrations, that I could read this and that it would be fantastic. So all around, very pleased. I finished 2 of my 4 prompts and I'm ready to move on to the next one.
Oh boy. I believe it was for the prompt Illuminations, read a book with a pretty cover. Yeah, Disney's Illuminations, read a book with a beautiful cover. I read Soul Heist: The Missing Mentor. I gave it 1.5 stars. I feel really bad leaving a review because the author in the end was like, if you have a good review to leave, please leave it. And I was like, I'm going to leave a not great review. And the thing is, my review on Goodreads is not going to say what's wrong with it. It's just going to be like 5 things about it, or like 5 tropes it fits into or something. But this book felt like a hot mess to me. There's so much going on. Let me even try to explain the premise to you. It will sound wonky because it is. There's this guy from Australia. He's on like a summer or winter break from college. Point is, he has a break from college, so he goes to Bali to go surfing because he likes to do that a lot on his breaks. And there he meets these 2 girls and this guy, pretty much by happenstance. The 2 girls already know each other, but then the guy doesn't. The other guy is like a huge computer geek, and the girls are like into the environment. And specifically, he like falls in love at first sight with this one girl. And so he goes with her to meet her mentor, because she has this like enlightenment mentor. It has like heavy Buddhist themes, and the mentor is missing. So they go through all these portals that are opened via meditation to try and find him, and things only escalate from there. There were a couple of specifically weird things about this. 1, I didn't prefer the writing style. 2, I just felt like there was too much going on. 3, you know how people tend to end chapters on like moments where you're like, and you keep reading? Okay. So this author tried to do that. It would be like a break in a chapter, or it would be the end of the chapter, and something big would happen. Like for instance, one time he was like, she answered the phone and she started crying. For the next couple pages in the next chapter, you wouldn't figure out why, or like you skipped ahead in some way. It just felt like I was sitting like this the entire time, like I was getting whiplash, like I was in like car wreck after car wreck. It didn't feel like a continuous story to me. Like it didn't make progressive sense in some ways. That skipping back and forth or just forward too much made the pacing weird, and it also made it impossible for me to understand what was happening. At one point there was a fight with a dragon, and I swear I can't explain to you how or why that happened. I just really didn't care about these characters. I didn't care about anything that was happening in this book. All the characters were extremely weird, not because they believed in Buddhist concepts, but because of like who they were as people and how they communicated about things. Lots of talks of climate change, which is of course important. The way some of these characters went about those talks was a little weird. What was the point of the book? I don't know. If there is a point, I missed it entirely, unfortunately. I really wanted to like this because I love the cover, and also I downloaded it. It's not that old of a book. So it was on Wattpad before apparently, which I didn't know. But on February 2nd of this year, the author published it on Amazon. On February 3rd of this year, is on sale for free. I saw the cover, I obviously downloaded it. And now it's just a couple months later, I'm getting around to reading it. That's how compelling the cover was to me. And just total miss for me. I'm sure this has an audience somewhere. I am not that audience. Sorry. But I'm excited because later tonight I get to start Project Hail Mary for my next prompt of Mickey Mouse selfie spot, read a book that is loved by all. I've like only heard good things about that book and I'm interested. I thought The Martian was only okay when I read it, and I haven't read anything else by the author, but The Martian could have just been okay to me because I'd already seen the movie several years before I ever read it, or maybe the mindset I was in at the time, so I'm willing to give it another go because I typically do enjoy sci-fi, so I'm interested to see if I like this one better, and then that will wrap this vlog up so I can move to the next part. I owe you a review on Project Hail Mary because I finished that yesterday afternoon and I'm giving it 4.5 stars. I really wanted to give it a 5 stars, but it just lagged too much in the middle and was a bit too long. But I loved the characters, I loved the story, I thought it was really well written. I liked it better than The Martian, definitely. I felt like the main character was quirkier and like funnier and more relatable to me than the character in The Martian. And I also just thought some of the problems he was solving were more interesting than the ones solved in The Martian. I loved the other like main character of this, like the primary secondary character. I love the choices made by the character, the main character in the end, but it really lagged in the middle and I found it hard to get through to the end of the book. But I definitely loved it. I understand why so many other people have loved it, and it makes me positive for reading this author's other work because I was unsure since I thought The Martian was only okay, but now I know I could probably read like Artemis. I'll definitely have my eye out in the future. But this completes all the prompts for this specific park, so I'm going to end the vlog here and start a vlog for the second park. So if you like this video, go ahead and give it a big thumbs up and comment down below what's your favorite Disney park, and subscribe for more reading, writing, and college lifestyle content. And until next time, bye humans, bye!